Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Habatat Now. I'm your host, Aaron Shea, and I'm super excited to have you. And we have an honored guest today. Janusz Walentynowicz is going to be taking us into his world. We're going to explore his work in his studio, and I want to thank him for being here. If you're on YouTube, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and share this with anybody else who would really care about art and glass art, because we really want to get the word out and talk about and share Janusz's work with the world. So I'm going to take over your screen real quick and start showing this presentation, if I can find the right screen to do that with. Here we goes. And kick back to Zoom. And here we go, share my
No, I don't know.
Here we go.
Okay. So
Feel free to mute yourself if you're not muted, unless you're Janusz. Janusz, should you unmute yourself? Are you able to talk? If not, I'm going to request you to be unmuted. Let me see if I can find you. There you are. Ask to unmute. You're still muted, Janusz. Go ahead and try to unmute yourself. There you go. Oops, I unmuted. Try it again. One more time, Janusz. I don't want to do it with you not being there. All right. Hopefully you'll get that. There you go. All right, I can see you. Janusz, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Yeah. So I'm on now before the
Yep. I'll kick it down so you can see everybody's face. How about them apples? Let's do that. All right, stop sharing. Speaker view. All right, go ahead, Janusz, say hello.
Yeah, well, hello, everybody. Really good to see you. Glad you came. And trying to do a presentation here. I've been working hard on trying to press 40, 50 years down to 40, 50 minutes. I tell you, it's not easy. But let's say, I hope I got the essence of it all. And thanks, Aaron, for doing this. Wonderful to be able to reach out. And I hope we get a good presentation here. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, sounds great. All right, I'm going to take over your screen. I'm going to do a little homework here, and we can continue on. Welcome again to Habatat Now. For those that you don't know, we do these weekly. We do them Saturday, either at noon or 1 o'clock, depending on circumstances. So just I look forward to seeing everybody's faces who wants to join us. Janusz has been with the Habatat family for a long time. God, I would say over 25 years, probably 20 years. So it's an honor to have him in our family, and we've had him at multiple exhibitions. He's been here longer than me. So again, we're grateful to have him. I want to just stop for a minute to just talk about artsy.net. Janusz has an exhibition on artsy.net celebrating his career and work, and we'll take a look at that. But basically, it's just an online art platform for people to view and see different types of artwork. And it gives us the ability to create art shows for artists from our gallery during this tumultuous time. So we'll be sending everybody a link to the show. It looks a lot like this. You can get an idea of what Janusz's works are available. This pricing, it's fantastic. A big thank you again to Janusz, and we're gonna do a quick studio tour video that Janusz provided us for the Glass 48 presentation, so you can get a glimpse of his world right now.
Hi there, and welcome to my studio here in Clinton, Illinois, where I've been working and creating for the past 20 years or so. And I would like to take you on the tour of the studio so you can see where all the work is being created. So if you're ready, let's go inside. This is the front room, one of the three about equal size rooms almost. And this is where I like to complete the work. So after it's out of the kiln, after it's polished, etc., there's still a good bit that has to be done to complete. And this is kind of the room. When it's cleaned up, pieces kind of present themselves much better. You can view them, you can really experience them and see what last finishes they need. But wherever you look, there's kind of bits and pieces
and projects lying, waiting, hoping to be taken up. Now here's some plumbing. That's eventually gonna become a sculpture of some sort. I had a feeling of what it was going to be, but not exact idea of how to approach it. So it's lying, waiting, and one day it's just gonna pop up and become something. So lots of plumbing lying around here. Between this room and room number 2, just take a quick peek in here. Also need a very heavy cleanup and organizing, but that'll be the plaster room, the grinding room, where a lot of mold working and cold working is being done. But the middle room is where everything has its beginning, so to speak. And that'd be where I start working with either that'd be wax, that'd be clay, or any other material, depending on what the project at hand really demands. So still not clean tabletops, as things are waiting to find the places again, but it's coming little by little. And we take a quick peek into one of the other more specialized room. Now here is the sandblasters, with one filled with walnut shells for just cleaning glass, or others with different sizes of grit for sandblasting, cutting, and of course the diamond saw for cutting larger slabs of glass as needed. And from here, we enter the largest room, which is in the back, and that's the kiln room. And I believe altogether there'll be about 10 furnaces or 10 kilns in here. That counting those kilns that can be combined also into being larger and smaller versions. So this be probably the largest kiln I had. Eventually, when I built it, it was with the vision of another section just as big to be able to put on top and actually expand the kiln to double the size. But somehow, I guess I never really kind of came to need that much firing space, let's say. So it has remained the dimension as it is. However, it has a divider inside, so one can still fire one half or the other. They are not equal size, it's slightly different sizes. Or one can take the divider out and fire it as one big kiln. And a little bit of that same thing is kind of the thing with this kiln here. And one can fire it as it is in the picture here, with the bottom section only. Or one can add one section or even a second section on top. And these sections also can be fired individually on their own. So in a sense, with all the combinations, probably I kind of have 5 kilns here of various sizes. But this kiln I have used in the instances where I've made full-size or life-size figures. So a life-size figure, reservoir and everything for glass. I stack all or both sections on top of the bottom section, and that'll be the size for casting a standing life-size figure.
To start.
Kind of see beyond the mess of things waiting to find their places again. There's a melting furnace in the back there, so whenever I need to ladle glass or blow glass, I fire that guy up. And in here also somewhere there is a metal smelter for bronzes, for other types of metal, and also a little blacksmithing whenever that is kind of needed is possible. My biggest helper in here, that'll be Mr. Clark, and he helps me out quite a bit. Some of the molds I produce here, they get so big, so even just turning them around when needed kind of really craves quite some muscle. So Mr. Clark here is a great helper to have. And lastly, occasionally when the sun comes out after a long winter, it's wonderful to put a table out here and work outside in the open air. And around here, kind of in the countryside, south of Clinton, nice and quiet, and not much, so one can work undisturbed. And if there's something I like, that is exactly that. So that'll be it for the quick tour of the studio, and I hope that you enjoy kind of following me around a little bit and get a look around at the facilities and get a sense of where the pieces you see both online and in the galleries have their origin. So for now, you all be good, and I guess I'll see you either at the galleries or other venues where we may meet. So for now, I'll get back to work. Take care.
Well, thank you, Janusz, for that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so Janusz can take over. And
I'll try and take over here. Yeah.
Yep, go ahead and take over the screen, Janusz. And
I need to choose a screen, right?
correct.
So,
I got to make sure that you can share, which now you can. So feel free to share and take over so we can see your presentation. I'm going to exit my presentation on my end so I can see what's going on. There we go.
So,
all right.
Are you seeing the correct screen here, or
Not yet. You haven't selected a screen. We're still staring at each other, which I don't mind. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. But Janusz, yeah, feel free to run through the green share screen button and then pick your screen.
I see it here. Yeah, I hit it, and let's see. That'll be. I think that'll be this one here. I hope. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. I'll try this one here. I hope I'm. Oh, there's another one here. That's
Yep. Bear with us, guys. It's always fun every week.
Otherwise, we have to do it again and see if that's the correct one.
Yep, we're still staring at you. So there we go. Now we're seeing it. Yep. I'll go ahead and select the play button at the very top.
Yeah, but question is if you see the one with kind of the notes or.
Nope, no notes.
I guess. Yeah, excellent. Good. So that's where. Let me first say that, the video you saw, there was a lot of references of cleaning up and stuff. And that's because the video was shot just after the fire I had in the studio. So everything was a big mess at the time. Everything was pulled out and had to find its places again. So I didn't really reference that in the video, but it may be good to know. It's not always that messy. It's messy, but not that messy. But here, as I said, I try to kind of compress 40, 50 years down to these 40 minutes. And currently I'm reporting to you from Skagen, Denmark, where I'll be actually moving to permanently in just a few months after the winter. So I'll show you a few slides of kind of the surroundings here. So this is not Clinton, Illinois. I guess everybody can see that. Here's the little town of Skagen. Beaches all around. And Skagen is an interesting place because in the 1800s, there was a big painters colony up here. Still a lot of artists around. But then painters came up here to capture the special light that is kind of created by the reflection of the oceans of each side of the, peninsula, I guess you can call it. And there was social realist, but still light was kind of a big thing for them to work with. So that's why they congregated up here. Here's a couple of pictures of the wife to one of the greatest painters up here, Anna Anka. And the one on the left, for example, is called The Light Comes Into the Blind Lady's House. And these little fishing houses were also very dark. So when the light hit through the window, it was a very sharp contrast. And they've thrived on that. Here's one painting. These are all on in a museum in Skagen. And this always made a profound impact on me, as I very much kind of identified me with a little boy in the middle, as I lost my father also as a very young boy to the ocean. He was a fisherman up here. So I've spent quite some time in front of this painting here, contemplating. But, and just to give you a sense, here is Denmark, on the very northern tip of Denmark here. So as you walk up, you'll know you're there when your feet get wet. And you know, it's just the city, and you can see the oceans all around. So that's kind of what on certain days create this special sharp light where everything is in contrast. And I spent my first years here, many first years, went to elementary school and was so lucky to meet this person who was my teacher and an artist in his own right. He was doing ceramic art. And these are some of the pieces he has here. I was actually just to a finissage of his works just an hour ago or so, and just came back from there. He's 93 and still crawling out to the studio occasionally and still doing work. Pretty incredible. Nils Hilledy. And I, of course, followed in his footsteps, starting out with clay and stoneware. And here I started to manage a gallery as an autodidact artist. I kind of started out with my first show. And in the newspaper, they brought this picture saying, "Artist make his first move." And well, that was right. So, but this is kind of more typical of what I was doing in ceramics at that point in time. But after a couple of years, I got a little stuck and didn't really know how to move on. Decided to go back to school and see if I could learn a little bit more about chemistry, etc., and see if that could push me somewhere else. But at the School of Applied Arts in Copenhagen, SFB called, they had a glass program. And after a year, I kind of discovered it down in the basement. And I wandered in and just never came out again. So I got stuck in there. And the school, it was kind of geared very much towards industrial design. And I didn't know what else. I knew I had to work with this material. So I thought I better learn the craft. And these are kind of the first pieces I did at the school. And also, we have never seen a piece of glass thicker than ½ an inch. So nobody thought it could really be done. So blowing was the way forward until a young artist came from Sweden, Daryl Hines, and he did some sand casting. And that was really an eye opener. And that kind of changed my path quite a bit. After school, I started working with, Finn Lindgaard was my instructor at the School of Applied Arts. And Finn Lindgaard, of course, he's the primus motor behind the Habatat Glass Museum. He was the one that came up with the idea. And for 18 years, he fought on it for it until it finally became reality. But this is our little crew. We built his studio in Habatat in 1981, I think it was. It's a Chai Monk, that will be me, and his helper Mutsu Inoue, and Finn Lindgaard, of course, on the left there. And while I was there, Finn got a visitor. It was Joel Myers, young Joel Myers. Finn had met him in the US, and Joel, of course, was coming to Denmark quite often as he was educated also at a School of Applied Arts, and we even, I found out, had the same instructor. And Joel got married, of course, with a wonderful Danish girl, and Birte. And I don't know, many of you may know, but just not long ago, Birte passed away after long illness. So that was pretty sad. Well, beautiful person. So, but Joel came by and kind of asked, well, what do you want to do when you get, when you grow up? And I had thought of going to the Rietveld Academy in Holland. But he pretty much persuaded me to come to the US and say, well, come with me, you know, I'll give you a scholarship. And I said, well, you know, US, further away, bigger adventure? Sure. And all of a sudden I found myself in the cornfields of Illinois. Not what I'd expected of the US. That's not the picture you have in the Denmark of the United States, but that's where I ended up. And in this glass shop, and I was horrified. I was about to turn on my heel and just say, I want to go home. But I stayed on, and good for that. It was, I wouldn't wish it anywhere otherwise. Here, whenever you had to use a kiln, you had to fix it. Whenever any piece of equipment you have to fix before you could actually use it. You had to fix the roof sometimes so the water wouldn't rainwater wouldn't pour down on all the electrical installments. So you learned really.
That still happens today. I get a lot of artists who are telling me their roofs need repair, especially when they rent.
Yeah. So, but that was the reality out there. But it really, I came out of there and I went to the junkyard and built my studio. So it was pretty good. But anyway, starting out at ISU, it was a completely different world with glass. In Denmark, you had the weight of tradition on your shoulders, and you couldn't really step out of that. The bowls, the kind of crispiness, the design, everything kind of you had to follow. Here, you could smack a glass around as you wanted to. You could, and I was using the floor as a marver. I was crushing things and picking up, and that freedom of just exploring all kind of things was immense, immensely helpful. And these are some of the first pieces I made in those first years. And again, I was putting all kind of tools to glass. In this case, it was an air chisel. You usually would use for granite, but I use it on glass, and then free cutting on a diamond saw. Yes, I still have all my 10 fingers. So, and just a couple more examples of this, also chiseled glass in these pieces here. But eventually, I was yearning to kind of get back to the imagery and not just do the objects. And little by little, I started kind of adding layers of color to the blown shapes and kind of getting imagery on there by sandblasting certain layers away. And these are some of the first pieces of that nature. And here also a few examples. I was working, of course, for Joel, making many of his amoebae pieces, some call them, the flat vessels. And I began to kind of flatten my own vessels, and I really liked that idea of having two canvases. And sometimes you can kind of do opposite things on each canvas and tell a story that way. And I worked a few years kind of doing that kind of work on blown pieces. And at the same time, trying a glass out in different ways. These are sand castings. I need to kind of get out beyond the blowing and see what's possible. This is kind of a first piece called the Johnsons. And another example of just kind of outskirts and checking things out. But finally, this would be around 1987. I really kind of put the blowpipe away and concentrated on the wall pieces. And these were some of the first pieces I did there. And eventually came to these little 4 pieces, and they made a change because that was kind of the first pieces where I used the reverse paint. I didn't really know where it was taking me at the time, but they were like the start of it all. So these are sand cast slabs, actually. So they pick up a positive relief. That is what you see on the surface in the sand. And from the back, I pressed another image. So I got a hollow impression from the other side. And that way you kind of got a certain depth in that glass with corresponding images on each side. Like in this case, the figure here up on the left is painted reversely from the back, and the bird here comes out in relief on the front. And all of a sudden, in 1 inch of glass, you have quite a depth. And that really kind of took my interest. Like in these here, also in the bottom left, the girl with a dress is in the back, painted, and the dog on the front is, it comes out in relief. And at the same time, didn't really know where that was going. And I also wanted to do the freestanding figures. So I knew Pat de Ver prior, you made figures, but it was always contained with the hands and arms kind of close to the body. I needed some gestures, and I spent a few years kind of finding out how to approach that. And eventually came to this side. This is close to life size, this piece here. Again, it's called Migrating Bird, where the title of the piece is actually outside of what the person is watching. But in all this work, kind of identity plays a big role. A person kind of looking for himself and really for who he is. And I think it probably has to do with losing your father at such an early age. There was still, you know, a person you weren't quite done with, and you were kind of seeking left and right. Well, how do the bits and pieces fit together? So that was kind of very much a subject of much of my work then. And here's a piece from a series I did called Father and Son also. And most people I found out, they take like the larger person in the back as the father holding maybe a deceased son, but it's exactly opposite. It is the grown son still holding on to the memory of a dead parent. And just a few examples of pieces done then, still about the identity, kind of the dressing up, creating a new identity. On the left here, this little piece is called In Pierrot's Clothes. And the other one on the right hand is called Double Portrait. I made a good few of the double portraits where you see on the surface with the paint, you have an image of the harlequin. And when you look kind of deep, you see there's an image of Pierrot, but contained in that same figure. And I use the imagery from the pantomime, Pierrot, harlequin, and the Columbine figure quite a bit in that period of time. And just a few more, still kind of about the same subject, identity, rabbit poise, portrait in disguise. And also these have a different image on the inside. It was called Anna's Anger, the two busts. They have one face that they showed the world, and they had a different face that was kind of more personal and hidden personality. This piece kind of made a big change also as I went from inserting or finishing the pieces in metal rather than wood. And that made a lot of sense to me all of a sudden. Although the metal and the wood, they're kind of such opposite materials in a sense, and had such different qualities, but they made a perfect marriage. And they opened up for a lot of new possibilities also. Like, for example, also, I started using the welder as a drawing tool, and that kind of went a good bit further than this. And this is a piece called Tears and Berries. A couple of examples, these are boxes, also you close, kind of precious content that you can close. And on the lids here, you have the relief coming out. And in here, you have the golden relief going in. So when you close them, they fit perfectly in, just like you would put away silver cutlery that's kind of precious. And one more example of that, also a box, is called Red Room. And you close it up and give it privacy after you've visited.
Beautiful piece.
That's the studio in Clinton. Up till now, I've been working in Bloomington, Illinois, but needed more elbow room, more space. And eventually I found that 30 miles south of Bloomington, Illinois, and that was in Clinton. Now there's the outside. I think I have a few pictures just of the, that's, yeah, just a few surrounding pictures. Wintertime, nice for Illinois. It's a rather special place actually. Not not only cornfields. These guys are helping picking apples in the fall. And here's a few shots, just action shots inside the studio, working with waxes and glass, filling one of the molds in the larger kilns. And yeah, usually I should have a mattress underneath there, but sometimes it's a bit hazardous what goes on. Moving molds in and out. And the studio is set up really so you can do anything that comes to mind. You can work with metal, wood, any material, smelt, blow. So you get an idea. Usually this studio can accommodate for it. And I need, when something pops up in my mind, I need to get to it right away. I can't just store it away and say, yeah, I'll take that later, because then my mind goes somewhere else and I leave it behind. So the getting to it right away, that's, I've found out that kind of matters quite a bit. And some of you will recognize this piece I've started on here. Another one of the first life-size figures is called She. Also did quite a few of images with this bound figure. And a few people kind of took to it as being bondage, but in my mind, again, it is the way that you inhibit yourself sometimes with your mind, with your thoughts, but immobilize yourself. And a few more examples also, kind of this going back into a respite, a way of hibernating until kind of the right moment to come out again. But when you're not ready for the world, or the world is not ready for you, you just go back a little bit and wait for the right time. This is a sphere when you can close up to become one sphere.
Janusz, how big is that piece?
It is in diameter, I'll say it's 2.5 foot.
That's impressive.
2.5 feet. So it's a fairly substantial piece, yeah.
I got another question for you from the crowd. Harold and Myra want to ask, do you work alone? Yeah. Are you often alone? What's the process?
I am a one-man band, yeah. I have found out I'm not really a good collaborator, because I want to be in charge of what's happening. And I better admit that. But also sometimes I've considered kind of having work done somewhere else, but I'm finding that the process gives me so much, because a piece always changes quite a bit through the process. And if I kind of give it instructions to somebody else, do this, I don't get all that. And the piece becomes exactly what it was kind of thought of at the first. And I like all those changes that come along, because when I work, it talks back to me, and we go back and forth. And so the result is completely different than if I've kind of had somebody to do it.
So on that same note, you mentioned that you used wood and switched to steel. Is that, so I assume you do both of them also? Do the metal work on these pieces too?
This is all metal. Yeah, I mean, the sphere is cast glass.
Uh-huh.
So the sphere itself is cast glass, and it's chiseled, so it looks like granite, kind of translucent granite. And the only metal that's there is actually the ring.
Ah, gotcha.
Holding it together. But all the rest is glass. Uh-huh.
Thank you.
No. And a little bit kind of on the same token there, with the mind of the bound figures, the immobilization. And here's a small figure. Well, it's not small. If he stood up, he'll be life-size. But it's taken on the tale of Lazarus from the Bible that I kind of moved around a little bit. But Lazarus was kind of the rich man who went to hell. And as he was thirsty, he reached for the grapes above him, and they would kind of disappear. And the stream he was standing in, when he reached for the water, it would kind of disappear also. And I think maybe most of us, if not all of us, have been in a situation that what we reach for, it kind of disappearing out of reach. And that's kind of the story in this piece. You see the grapes or up here he's reaching for. Down here there's a tap kind of representing the water. And two Marias, this is called, just a few examples. But everyone, I kind of work along kind of with my own thoughts, but sometimes something happens from the outside and you just cannot ignore it. And I finally had to make a show which I entitled Guns Save Lives. I had to, every day or every other day when I picked up materials, I have to go to Bloomington, and I was passing by these signs, I think called roadside poetry. And finally I had enough. I had to react because it was too much. And this was the title piece of the Guns Save Lives show. And when you see the irony, you find that the title really, or the expression really backfires with the images of Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Lincoln. And in here, the viewer just kind of get a sense of his own image and find that there's actually room for one more plaque there. Mm-hmm. And usually when I exhibited these, I always had this on the wall, on the opposite wall. So after you saw your own image, you kind of get the sense of 9 guns being pointed at your neck. And it kind of gave you a little bit of eerie feeling, but that's what I get when I'm around guns, which I am where I live, because my neighbors are shooting with machine guns and everything else in rural Illinois. I am a bit around gun that way. If something moves, a rabbit, squirrel, it's dead if my neighbors see it. A few pieces from the show. The thought is, of course, that kids are so often innocent victims of gun violence, gun accidents. And this piece is called The Good, the Bad, and the Innocent. And probably what I see the most successful little quiet piece of the show, just the handbag with the blue gun. It pretty much tells all without having to really explain it too much. And a few other pieces, the book, Amor, We Kill in the Name of Love. And this is a latecomer, but still kind of in that same sphere. It's a piece called Rest in Peace. And here also a book, The Good Book, this is called. And that done, I had to kind of get back and lean back a little bit away from the heavy stuff. And I always loved the cello. It's an instrument that has such a tremendous range from going from the meditative to the dynamic, and it captures the whole spectrum of emotions. And I did a number of pieces with these females playing the cello. And I kind of stuck with the meditative aspect of the cello here. And just to show you a few of those. This is the last one called Mona with the cello. And again, an event happened. I made these pieces. I'll see if I can go back to the chain there. Yeah, 9/11. I think I did this a year after or so. We just had to kind of sink in what really had happened. And they kind of represented that something big and enormous power had gotten loose in the world. And of course, each chain here is about 18 inches. So it's a pretty heavy thing. And the last link is always broken. So you can imagine, something big has escaped here. And at the time Bush was president, I did not agree with him. I did not agree with the Iraq wall. And I thought with such a guy in charge, one can make art from toilet paper also. And I made these toilet paper pieces.
Very relevant now too.
Pretty irrelevant still, yeah. I had them out again. So actually, I found quite a bit of my pieces. They come up with new relevance in these times here.
Yeah.
But again, after that, kind of at the same time, kind of working along a little bit with the technique still. the reverse painting, how far can you take it? And here I started making actually three-dimensional pieces, get them off the wall. And this is done with 2 slabs with image that fits exactly, lines up exactly right when you put them together back to back. And painted and assembled, you get a sense of a three-dimensional figure inside of a glass. So this is a view of both sides of that same piece. And at the same time on the wall, still working with the how much depth I can get with the reverse paint. And I kind of set a challenge to myself to make this female with the straw hat and daisies. And when I was done, I was pleased. So, but again, these slabs, I never go above 2 inches, sometimes less. And then within these 2 inches, you have to kind of create that depth with the paint and with the impression of the glass.
Janusz, when you're using and doing paintings like that, do you use a mirror, or can you totally tell what it looks like just from looking at the other side?
Yeah, I think later on I just have one shot where I'm actually painting there. But sometimes when I'm making some really large pieces, then I can't, if I can't reach, I use a mirror.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I look into the mirror and see where I am. But
Oh,
otherwise, I can kind of reach in and still look from the front.
Makes
But,
sense.
and I'll kind of reach from underneath, you know, still. But occasionally, yeah, I have to use a mirror to keep looking. And this sad event happened in my family. A family member died, and with whom I was very close. And that kind of shook my world a little bit. And in this time, for about a few years, I was looking for meaning again. And these pieces kind of reflect that. I'll go back here. Everything seemed meaningless. And this piece is called Collector. And the hand is collecting a small bird. And one imagine maybe that small bird goes up into the funnel or whatever, but a meaningless act. And that kind of reflected the meaningless I found just in life at the moment. It was so not understandable. And there it comes. This piece here kind of explains itself. It's called Seeker, and also seeking in all direction to kind of regain an equilibrium and move on. And kind of getting a little out of that, starting kind of to get back to what I was doing before, also the thought of identity and who we are and how our personalities are created. These pieces kind of, the idea behind them is that we get influenced by everybody we meet in our life. Of course, our parents as huge influences, our teachers, friends, people, maybe important people we meet, and everybody contributes with bits and pieces. And we eventually end up being built up of these bits and pieces that may fit or may not fit. But in any way, it becomes our job to kind of balance those bits and pieces through life, and hopefully in somewhat gracious way. But that's kind of really the thoughts behind these. I think I have a couple of images of a few more of those. And here again, some pieces that may kind of have relevance also today with the quarantine, but also a bit meaningless act. A person kind of stuck in one place, but still kind of just digging out and doing some kind of action which may have meaning or may not. Here's one just drawing a circle. These are wall pieces. And this one here, it says 2 and 2 equals 5. And I think that's kind of how I see life, because if everything equals 4, it becomes too darn boring. Aaron, you saying something? Or?
No, I'm sorry.
No, okay. So 2 and 2, and I see in life, in art, in religion, 2 and 2 is never 4. Only when everything is predictable, you can say 2 and 2 is 4. And that is not where I want to be. So for my well, being 2 and 2 is always 5 or 6 or 8. And here just 3 more images of the female pieces.
Those are about,
figures.
what, 60 inches tall? How tall are those things, Janusz?
They are very, I mean, some of these were kind of life size, my life size, let's say 5.5 foot tall. And then, yeah, a little down also, but they're, yeah, fairly kind of substantial pieces. And the challenge was, let me just say also that here, I kind of got back to the casting process because before you could cast a figure, but always you had to cut off sprues, et cetera, and the materials you have to cast really weren't the best. So you always had fins that needed to be ground off and cold worked, and you ended up with that same kind of surface, ground, polished, whatever. And I kind of got tired of that. And when I found a material where you kind of really could put a texture on the glass and keep it, not having to grind it off afterwards, that's kind of what regained my interest. But then you get into technical problems also because you don't want sprues for the glass everywhere else. I only had the kind of the 2 feet, very narrow spots for the sprues. And then you have enormous problems because you get kind of suctions in the glass, etc. And it took a good few years to kind of begin to resolve that. And I could really talk about that for hours, but let's leave that for another time, I guess. And here are just a few more examples. Again, kind of looking at self, looking at 2 images of oneself, maybe a younger and older, the communication between them, where you still see yourself as the younger, although the world sees you as the older. And there's kind of a disconnect kind of coming up there. And just working with the technique. I love the kind of the connecting these pieces, and still working a little bit with the hats, just kind of a practice also. And I think here we're coming to something different. I love, you know, I work with something for a little while, and all of a sudden when I get too comfortable with it, it's time to pull the rug. Because on one hand, well, it doesn't get boring, but repetition is really not my game. And thus I have to kind of jump out where I am out of my comfort zone and looking for something different, because I know there is something different out there and I need to go and find it. And it kind of became these pieces here at that time. These, I think, was kind of inspired a little bit by, I love tubing. I'm looking at these big refineries, whatever, food processing plants. And we actually have one big ADM food processing plant just south of Clinton in Decatur. And it's you kind of watch, you know, you imagine food going through all these tubes and you have no idea how they figure out where it's supposed to go. And also I think you put good material, good stuff into a funnel one place, and you add whatever you do, chemicals, poisons, and whatever comes out in the other end, that is what we buy and eat. And it doesn't really make sense to me. So, but that's kind of a little bit of the thought behind these pieces. It's kind of a shot of these mazes of lines and tunnels and funnels. So I went backwards. I'll go forward here again. So a couple of examples of these pieces. Again, imagine, you know, you put whatever your raw materials in here, you open here, it gets zapped here, you get something added here, and then in the other end, a product comes out. And this one, the more animated ones I call the mobile processors. And I like to kind of get that kind of mobility in them, as animated feeling, as if they could walk around a little bit like robots. And another event happened, and I get colored by that. You know, I have to kind of have my say when when some events happen, because you cannot be quiet. I can't. And it was probably around the time of the Boston bomber. And that made us all of a sudden collectively afraid of left unattended suitcases, backpacks, etc. And I started making these boxes, and at the same time, they kind of, to me, really, they suggest when you're just too full of everything and you're about to burst, when you cannot contain more. And that's how these are strapped and just about to burst in a sense. Others I've found came up to me and said, well, they see something completely different. They see the bundles that people, very much Jewish people, took with them as they fled Germany, as they were transported to camps, etc. And that way they relate back right up to our time with the refugees, both in Europe and Southern America coming in here. So I think they have a pretty far reach, these boxes here. And there's another example of it. And there's something inside. When you watch them, you can just sense that there's something, but it never reveals itself. So that mystery is kept. And past those a little bit, I kind of moved along a little bit with the two-sided reverse painting pieces. Again, get them out is 3D rather than on a wall, and see how much further could I take it there. This is kind of, the imagery is an old Danish kitchen set, a blue enameled kitchenware called Madame Blue, and every Dane knows it. And of course, on a red and white checkered box. And here you see it kind of from a grown-up's perspective. You look at the table, and when you go on the other side, you see it from a child's perspective, from the other side. And well, maybe a dog, who knows? Mm-hmm. And a few more pieces from and kind of went back a little bit from the heavy stuff because it kind of wears you out. The Boston, you have to get back and have a little rest occasionally. And then I started making these still lives. These are wall pieces. This is called Mediterranean still life with a spin top. And a couple of examples here, another still life. And again, challenging the form and how far can you take it beyond just a simple oval, and eventually kind of did this piece here. And it's called Sleeping Woman in Beach Chair with Drink. And again, it's a two-sided piece. And when you see it from this side, she's having kind of a full drink in her glass yet. And by the time you get to the other side, the drink is empty. So she was quick. And another example from that period of time, this like in a factory. The title of this piece is called Gnome Smashing Apparatus. And kind of political, every initial here is kind of a politician, US or foreign, that I think should be gone. But anyone can kind of put their own person in there. Mitch McConnell would be my choice. So, and some of you recognize this piece here. I love this little piece. Again, the two-sided. On one side, you see the imagery from the female's side of the fence. And on the other side, you have it from the male. So it's meeting at white picket fence. And a few more shots kind of came up with the question of hometown. I think that's kind of relevant. I was thinking, going back home, not going back home. And I was thinking what it actually makes a hometown, your hometown. Is it where you grew up? Is it the place you just happen to understand? Is it a place you're comfortable with? Is it where you decide to have your family? But everybody probably have their own reasons for why they call one spot in the world their hometown. And the titles of these kind of include the coordinates of exactly where the motive is from. And these are both from my hometown of Skagen, where I am right now. And another one of that series. And go through fast a little bit. It's Serenity, it's called. And again, you have the freedom of doing something completely different on the other side. So still keeping the contour of the figure, but behind like a fence. And for those who are kind of interested a little bit in technique, this is kind of, I'll show you how I make these pieces. They're rendered in clay first, like this one here. And then I paint the clay a little bit just to kind of get a sense of where I'm going with it. I have another example. That is the hometown piece we just saw prior, also made in clay here. After that, the two pictures up here. Now this is a different piece, but it shows the rubber mold that's made from the clay. And that gets invested in the plaster. And that's kind of the mold on the far or bottom right. That's the resulting plaster mold that goes in the kiln. And here, two molds from each other side of the glass are in the kiln, filled with glass, melted, and here they are done. After that, they get ground and polished on the surface, lined up, and hooray, it lines up. Here you have both sides, and then after that, the painting. Here I kind of worked for months on a few different pieces. They get put in a wooden frame, and on the bottom you see they're all framed here, ready to be painted. And I have a cloth behind so that the light is not shining through. And here I am kind of, this piece I can just reach in behind with my hand, otherwise I can reach in from the side. And on the bottom, they're all painted and just drying. And here's like a finished piece ready to be assembled back to back. And again, one side is the motif, exactly taken from one side. The other is when you go from the other side and take a picture of the same motif. And here's finally my new studio. It's a little bit further along now. These pictures, I think, from last summer, but it's pretty far ahead now. A good bit smaller than the studio in Clinton, but I have to learn to work smaller. It has been in the cards for a long time. Here, building new kilns, of course, I can't take pretty much any of the equipment from the US studio with me, different current, etc. So I decided to build new ones, and the old equipment I have to get rid of somehow. And a couple more shots from the inside, but looking forward to start working here. And that is it. There's still a few pieces of most recent work, but that is included in the show on Artsy. So whoever kind of want to see what has happened in the last 2 years can go in and check out the pieces there, the work. So that's all for me. If you have any questions, I'm all ears, and if I have an answer, I'll be pleased to provide it.
Thank you, Janusz. Anybody who wants to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself. That was a great, I learned a great presentation about you and your work, and it added a lot of depth between your process and what you come up with and your ideas. And I found it very interesting that you have to execute right away. When you have an idea, you got to start working on it to make it come to fruition and come out and become part of the artwork we all experience. So thank you. Got a lot of compliments in the chat, people thanking you for their individual pieces that they own in their collection and loving your presentation. But if anybody has a question or a thought, this would be the time.
Good luck to you, Janusz.
Hey, thank you.
We'll miss you here.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff and people I'm gonna miss, I know that, and there's some challenges lying ahead. It's a different country, with certainly when it comes to availability of everything else. So, yeah, for many other reasons also, that's a decision I have to stick with. So I had 40 good years. in the US. No regrets there. But now it's time to spend the rest somewhere else.
Well,
Yeah.
you're welcome to return and visit us anytime, pending the world's circumstances.
I'll drop by occasionally, probably, hopefully. Let's say.
That's great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today and here at the Habitat Now on our beautiful day, and hope everybody enjoys the great weekend. And if you have any questions or any interest in the work, feel free to check out the artsy presentation. It's an amazing collection of available sculpture by Janusz. And again, I thank you, Janusz, for being part of today's event. This video will be posted on YouTube. Feel free to check it out there. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wonderful. Good luck to you.
All right, guys, everybody be well. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Steve.
Yeah. Bye, Steve.
Bye, Aaron.
Bye, guys. Take care.